Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific chat. Today, I'm joined by Chris Ambriz of Night Creature Productions as we discuss his inspirations, aspirations, and journey into horror. Good evening to you, Chris. Welcome to the chat. Thanks for coming along.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about our production.
And
Our production.
also, I have to say, fair play to you. You're literally just off a 9 day shoot for your latest project, Evil Inheritance, which, funny enough, is how we met, was on
Yeah.
Slasher before you went on that. So I was expecting to hear from you so quickly. I thought you might like want a day or two to like switch your brain off and recover. But
No, that didn't happen. It hasn't quite happened yet. I'm still, as I was saying before, I was going through the whole process and then kind of jumping back into it again and stuff. So it's like a never-ending thing for me.
good. Does it just hit you like one day, you just crash and burn, and it all just sort of catches up?
Oh yes, absolutely. It does. It really does. It's kind of it's a cumulative effect. It just seemingly, you go through such an intense shoot, and the heat and everything, and then you go on to something else, and then you come back to it, and then it just hits you that it out of nowhere. It just kind of zaps you.
That's one thing. I've talked to a few film producers over the time, especially sort of the micro budget indie sphere. One thing that really astounds me is the short space of time you actually have to get something out there. For example, 9 days, and I take it you don't have too much longer with post production. Maybe a few days after that to get it all tied together. How on earth do you manage to keep an oversight of the project rather than seeing the wood for the trees sort of thing, and keep it going in such a short period of time?
That's a really good question. That's really, I got to hand it to my team: Oscar Martinez, Luis Alvarado, Ashley Huff, Mario Aguilar. We kind of split quite a bit of the production duties between all of us, and we have to kind of work with each other to kind of make sure that all those elements get done. And it's not perfect. That there's just so many moving parts to all those things, and trying to keep the production on track. And this is an interesting production too, because we've had to break it into three phases.
Hmm.
Phase one, we shot for 3 or 4 days back in March. And then and that's with a different crew and mostly the same crew, some different people and a different cast. Then we came back in July, the end of July, down here in South Texas, which anybody's been down here, it's really hot. And then we picked up the 20 years later segment of the film, and that took another 9 days of shooting right there. So it's kind of like we into little pieces, and then we'll come back again in late November, early December to shoot one more segment that will be our phase three.
All right, so that was the second phase then that you just finished.
Right. Hmm.
I saw one of your promo videos, and it just looked like chaos. You're in this house, everyone just literally sitting on top of each other, and you're
Uh-huh.
trying to do a bit of promo, and the camera's sort of bumping against people, and it just looks very claustrophobic, intense, sweaty, and uh, I don't know. Do you need that sort of discomfort to crank it out? Things are too comfortable, does that have an effect on the creation, or is it just something you've learned to put up with?
Yeah, I think that whether if it was intended or not, it kind of came through. And I've always heard that if you're having too much of a good time, that it's not going to be worthwhile. So you have to have a little bit of tension, a little bit of chaos on the set and stuff like that to keep things moving along, and to make a good piece of art, and stuff like that. I don't necessarily condone chaos or anything like that on the set, but
Mhm.
I definitely think that you got to put a lot of work into production. It takes so many steps, it takes so many people, it takes so many ideas and collaboration with everybody to make this whole thing move.
Yeah, and especially when everyone and it's such a small production, everyone has to wear multiple hats. So there's no luxury of departments that, oh, we'll pass it on to that department, they'll take care of it. It's on everybody. It's not just, I suppose there's no passengers allowed. Like we can't just go, oh, Chris is here, he's in charge, I'll just coast along. Everybody sort of comes with an understanding. They have to get on board.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is like you got to be able to understand everybody's job to do, but you want to put people in those positions that are as good or if not better at it. And it's a collaborative process. I come in and help out here, help out there, but I think we do have to be able to work together as a team. It's not always perfect, but we do our best. We definitely try, especially if you want to put your name on it. You want to get the word out about the project and stuff like that. There is a lot of give and take when it comes to that work, but it's definitely having that sense of guidance and trying to get those days, getting your days, getting everything in the can as much as you can, as fast as you can, and being as flexible with the schedule as possible. And it was tough. I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of negotiation, a lot of moving parts. Again, I keep using moving parts, but that's what it did feel like. It's kind of like a
Hmm.
big.
No, I think even though you, like I said, that short video you did, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I think that captured. Um, you could sort of see everybody was frazzled a bit, while still trying to maintain the professional aspect, but everybody's on top of each other,
Uh huh.
and I think that told more than any behind the scenes footage, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Than you could do 100 reels or behind the scenes or director's commentaries, but that little short video told me more about what it was like to be on set than anything.
I feel like, yeah, you kind of have to kind of pull the curtain a little bit and show a little bit of the process to give everybody kind of the insight to what it takes. And everybody has their own process. Everybody does that kind of thing. I'm always a real big fan of seeing how things are put together. Anything that shows that ability of what goes into it and stuff. And for me, my background both in special effects makeup and photography and all that kind of stuff. I try to incorporate as much of that as I can, and but
Mhm.
still giving everybody room to breathe.
Yep. That was something I was going to ask you a bit later on, but how did you get yourself involved in the world of filmmaking? Because you've been at this, what was it? Night Creature Productions been on since 1998, so that's quite a bit of time just for that company alone. But I think you've been doing this. This is like a long term sort of career.
Yeah, no, we Luis Alvarado and myself, I think we were just big horror nerds back in the late 80s, early 90s. We loved it. We read Fangoria magazine. We watched all the horror movies at the video store, and we just started practicing with our friends. We brought in Oscar, we brought in Jason, we brought all these people in. We were doing shorts, and of course in the infancy of video production back in the day with the VHS camcorders and trying to reproduce things that we had seen here and there and stuff. And then I guess towards the late 90s, it did seem possible to get into filming something other than 16 millimeter or 35 and, doing it on super VHS or high 8, whatever the platforms were at the time. So we started in 1998. We produced a vampire feature film, and it took us literally a year to produce it. And it was very ragtag, very run and gun, very guerrilla filmmaking, and the technology just wasn't quite where it is now. So it was a lot of making mistakes and figuring things out and all that kind of stuff, and just the genuine love for the genre and telling horror stories and stuff like that. And we just continued throughout the years on different projects, and then we had our horror anthology, Muerte Tales of Horror, that came out, ironically enough, almost 10 years ago now, that we started working on that and got that going. And it's just, it just takes time. And I'm a genuine fan. I love horror films. I always had since I was a kid.
The 80s were a magical time. I pity anyone that didn't live through it because I don't think you can describe the experience. Can you, of getting into a video store and the horror section was like the naughty section, was it? Because I was like next to the board, and there's usually like a curtain or something, or just sectioned off. And yeah, just getting there. The covers were always the most exciting. I mean, your
If you're
generic
just a
action flicks.
fan, yeah,
Yep.
it's so punk rock, it's so metal, it's so, it's so in its own realm. It was such a it was just, you knew who your tribe was even back in the day if you read Fango, if you were at the horror section of the video store or that kind of thing. It was just that, that thing to find the next best horror film, and following all your faves, that kind of stuff, whether it was Peter Jackson, George Romero, Sam Raimi, and stuff like that. It's just what was the next thing. It was just like we were waiting for it. We were always waiting for it.
Yeah, that in fact that was one from my childhood. Bad Taste. That poster
Oh, I
just
love it.
lives in my memory. Like if anything drew me to that and Critters, those two posters, that's what drew me to the horror section.
Yeah, the poster was such a draw too. It's like, ooh, what's this? You get a snazzy VHS cover, and you take a chance on it, you take it home, you might find something extraordinary or something that wasn't so extraordinary, but at least you put the effort, the time. It was very tactile. It was very in the moment. You definitely you definitely knew where your tastes lie in horror, and thriller or sci-fi or whatever your genre preference was. But it was always a thrill to find something, or travel to another city to find a rare copy of something. Like for us, it would be going to Austin and seeing something that we wouldn't get over here in Corpus.
Yep. Is that something you try to bring then to your creations? That sort of you remember back to that time, and like I always try to explain this channel. You felt the effort. You felt like the creators were wanted you to have a good time, which feel is lost a bit in filmmaking today. Definitely mainstream stuff. It's like they don't care whether you have a good time or not. They're just pumping it out and doing whatever they do. Like a factory production line, you just get that staleness to it. Do you
Yeah,
have
I
in the back when you're actually creating? Do you have that in the back of your mind? I remember what it was like. I want my audience to have that experience too.
Yeah, I do. I think that, a lot of it is just like trying to find the balance of being self-indulgent, but, telling a great story and finding those things that, will jazz up horror fans, that, you have the proper mix of practical effects and good acting, good cinematography, all those things. You're trying to, generally make a story that you're passionate about, not built out of algorithms and focus groups and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely trying to get that jazz again. Definitely trying to find those right riffs and and giving the horror fans what they want. Good characters, good setup. A fun time.
Mhm.
I think the biggest sin of a horror film is for it to be not interesting and boring. It doesn't ever go anywhere.
I can always tell when a non-horror fan has created something because, oh, they want to see boobs, oh, they want to see blood, and then they do nothing else, and you're just going, what is this shit? Why? And it's really insulting. It's like they don't. You can always tell when a tourist comes in, can't you? Rather than someone actually has a love for the genre.
Yeah, if they don't really, if it doesn't, yeah, you can always tell that it's like if they're just like going through a checklist and I think it's even worse when they don't have any passion behind it, that they're just trying to hit marks and not really putting any thought into it and stuff like that, or it just comes off very um badly thought out, I guess is the word.
Yeah, or not even thought out. Like don't
Yeah,
care.
or
Just
not even thought out. Yeah,
yeah, you just get that feeling. Like I said, it's that whole. It's the intention behind
right.
the creation. Is like, yeah, that stuff you use are stupid. I don't like. You'll just do it anyway because that's just what you like. All right, poor
Yeah,
thing.
it's just
Get on
like
with it.
it's like trying to hit, just picking low hanging fruit and stuff like that, but not really trying to challenge themselves. Maybe too. It just seems like very, yeah, like I said, poorly thought out and stuff like that. I mean, and sometimes you can kind of watch those type of movies too and go, yeah, definitely not going to do that. Definitely not going in that direction and stuff like that. And you do your best to try to, hold on to what your intentions are,
Mhm.
for me as a horror fan, and definitely knowing other horror fans and trying to be, somewhere in that plateau.
Yep. There's a there's a sort of trend I've seen with independent productions, and obviously before we went on stream, you mentioned like Indiegogo and crowdfunding. So I've seen this sort of pattern, and I wonder if you can maybe help talk me through the bit I think goes missing at the end. We'll see a film project. It appears in crowdfunding. It achieves its aim. It gets made. Then it sort of disappears into the film circuit, film festival circuit thing, and then we never hear from the movie again. What happens there? Is it something to do with distribution, or so many movies actually get made via crowdfunding and then they disappear into like a black hole and we never hear from it again, and it never appears on streaming or it's never on the website. It's even the order as a DVD or a Blu-ray.
Right. I
Where does
think
where does that go wrong?
I think I can't speak for everybody, but I know that like the whole distribution aspect of it is very tricky. Yeah, and once you go through all that, then you kind of go, okay, well, definitely not going to do that again, or going to try to go down a different route. And I don't think I think it, with a lot of filmmakers is that plan on making the film a certain way or with certain caveats and baked into it. And then when they get into the distribution aspect of it, they find out that, these things are not going to work, or they're going to try to change things. And then usually scuttles the distribution of the film, or there's internal politics within the production itself that gets it scuttled. There's so many hurdles to jump as a filmmaker that if you've never done it, you don't know what to plan for, and you can make a lot of mistakes, and that can really put a bad taste in a lot of filmmakers' mouth, where they either don't bother at all, or they don't try again afterwards. Again, I can't speak for every filmmaker and stuff like that, but I know out of the groups I've seen and been involved with, including my own stuff, I know it's definitely, it's a tricky slope. And you should always try to be transparent with the people that do invest in you, and it's always really important, if they're going to put their time, their effort, and their money, and hopefully that you're going to take everything and put it up there 100%. And that's, I can't emphasize that enough. I hope filmmakers that go and ask for resources, that they put it back up on the screen, any which way they can. And I know it's not easy. I applaud anybody that's gone through this process. It's not for the weak-hearted. It'll definitely take it out of you. As we were talking about before, you'll walk away from the whole production going, "Whoa, what did I just go through?"
Mm-hmm. This is all about. I like to try and solve the mystery or provide solutions, not just complain about things. If that makes sense. And
Yeah,
one thing I've noticed
absolutely.
and a lot of people, it's very strange. They're like, "Oh, Hollywood, we can't be Hollywood." Nobody's asking anybody to be, but they automatically jump that in their mind, or they've got all the distribution sewn up. We can't do anything. And I genuinely don't believe that, especially with today's technology. The ability to make something, as you brought up, is greater than ever. But there's definitely a logjam. So my question is there a way for independent creators, pretty much like the independent author scene has done,
Yeah.
there's this balance between still using the main companies like Amazon, etc., for the creation of the product, and obviously taking a hit, but you can actually be responsible for your own distribution, make your own networks. Is there a way for independent creators to do it, as in filmmakers? Is there a way for that to happen without relying on the normal chains of distribution, but actually start creating their own and collaborating more on that aspect of it?
Yeah, there probably is, and that's probably where a lot of the discourse will probably come from, is trying to get a lot of people on the same page about how these things should be handled. And it's never, I don't want to sound negative about it, but I don't think it's ever much like musicians or authors or filmmakers. The model for business is never in the favor of the creators. It's usually the people putting out the material and stuff. So, and again, too, like, whether they're going to infiltrate on their own terms or develop a system that works in their own terms, that's going to take a lot of it's going to take a lot of thought, and it's going to take a lot of planning by a lot of people. And I don't know how exactly that would look, especially
Mhm.
since it seems like all the streaming services are very secular in their own rights, or they're getting gobbled up by bigger entities. As soon as they start to take off, then
Yeah, once it
they
reaches a
get
certain
bought out.
size,
Yeah,
they become bait. It's a target. But that's
yeah,
always been the way of business, and
right.
it's a never evolving thing, and then that gets gobbled up, so you start the next thing. It's about keeping moving. But
Yeah, it's like the
I
snake
think,
eating its own tail, I
yeah,
imagine, too. And as far as like physical media going away too, I think some of the best, I've literally set up tents and said, hey, look, if you want to get a copy, here it is, and then here's the links here too, and stuff like that. Hopefully that generates some interest and some resources back into the other filmmakers' hands. But the lack of physical media, I think, does, or lack of access to it, definitely changes a lot of things too, especially how models keep changing every 5 years, or whatever worked in 2018, 2019 will probably not work in 2025, and then whatever's working now probably won't work in 3 to 4 years from now too. So
but
it's
does
hard
that,
to anticipate
yeah,
how things are going to change.
that's kind of always been the way of things, even back in the day before the digital age. Uh, that's sort of why discussions need to happen. People need to sort of keep their
Right.
uh, finger on the pulse, so to speak, and maybe find the right folks. But I just find there's a defeatist. It just makes me wonder why people bother, because there seems to be a defeatist attitude, which I don't agree with.
Yeah,
And
and I
when I go
generally
to
try
the
not to pay
yeah,
attention to it myself and just kind of stay, focused on whatever the goals are. Yeah, make your film, find a decent stream to get it on, to get it to as many people as you can, and try to collect things, build yourself back up, and then go back into production on your next project. Hopefully that
mhm,
sets the standard for your next film, or your next production, whatever it may be. But I don't know, I see filmmakers jamming films left and right, and I don't understand. I'm always amazed that, like, they can do 2 or 3 movies a year, whereas, for me, just getting 1 made is such an effort, and
mhm.
stuff like that, and I always feel like you should try to stay focused on the story that you're telling and try to do it the most justice before you move on to another project. And of course, like, if you're going to hand it off to an editor and go direct another project, yeah, I can see where that works out. But I don't know if a lot of people have those resources to jump project to project to project. Everybody's different.
I have seen it with gaming, and I don't know if it's the same sort of thing where people use the funding from the current crowdfunded project to finish off the previous one, and they're always working on that sort of deficit.
Right.
And it's one of
Yeah.
them things where you never really catch up. And I do think there's like I said, there's a cog in the machine missing where people are relying on the mainstream, you know, to get this bit finished, and they just sort of want to hand it over to the mainstream, and that's not the point of being an independent creator. And I do think there's an opportunity here if the right people could sort of get together and just start off small enough to, I don't know, get the funds back, get a return on
Right.
investment, not make it set everybody up in mansions, but at least if a project gets a return on investment and then is able to partially fund the next one, that's the me's moving forward. But there definitely needs to be something, and it's the same with not just films, but authors as well, and gaming. It's across the board. This whole idea of the independent creators is a new thing
I
at
think
this
so. I
level.
I think so too, and I think also getting the constructive feedback that they need, to get their projects made too. It's like, okay, we have the idea, is this, getting that route to figure out as like, oh, is this the best, we've got this story, we got this crew, we got that, where do we go from here?
Hmm.
And it becomes a lot more understandable, I guess is the word, because it does. I don't know. I can't speak for all other filmmakers, but nothing ever seems understandable about, like, all the deliverables and all the hurdles that will approach you once you're done in production. The getting the feedback, but also getting the marketing in the correct way. Like, you're going to get the right key art for your project, all the searchable keywords when you're looking up things, and putting your project out there, and it does hit the right audience, and that the audience is going to take a chance on you, and they're going to get something out of it, and they're not going to be so you know, so kind of like, oh, I'll only watch this, I'll only watch that, and stuff like that. I remember in the video stores, like, you didn't even think of, like, it had to be an A24 or this kind of stuff. You just kind of went into it very clear of, I was into a horror film, I was into a sci-fi film, I'm into this kind of movie, and that was it. You didn't really think in terms of, like, it had to be from a studio, or it had to be from
Hmm.
certain types of I mean, there were fandoms, don't get me wrong, but I mean, at the same time, but, it wasn't so
Those were individual
secular.
franchises
Yeah.
as opposed to this is once again it's a recent thing, and then I suppose
Yeah.
A24 is so hit and miss to me. They've a
Yeah, I think
certain
they're all a
kind
hit or
of
miss, I mean, and again, too, it's like, I get the idea, if you're gonna do a business model, you wanna play it safe, and you're investing so many dollars into a project and stuff like that, you wanna see a maximum return. But for, like, movies that are a little bit more in the category of, I guess the word would be niche, and stuff like that, or very
Mhm.
specialized. You don't want a huge budget, because it's going to take you 3 or 4 times the amount to get it back in such a limited scale. So you definitely want to keep your budgets tight and your windows of production pretty small, so that you can get it all in there and quickly.
Yeah, because actually there's a question here in the chat. I'll just bring it up from Chris. If Chris had an unlimited budget time frame, what movie would he want to make? But I think you've kind of answered that question. because that's the thing about the horror genre. Bigger the budget doesn't necessarily mean better movie. It's a strange thing,
This
isn't it?
means
About
more headaches, more
mm,
more, more things that you have to keep in track of. I mean, it'd be great. You could surround yourself with a team that's going to challenge everything and make it the best. They're gonna and yeah, I think if I had unlimited resources, and you always think that when you're making the film, and it's like, okay, well, what would that look like? But yeah, you just want to make the best movie, the most entertaining movie. Lots of practical effects, a lot of melding of technologies and stuff like that, and telling something that you really are passionate about, that you feel in your heart, that you want people to get behind. That would be great. That would be wonderful.
actually, an example of that would be Bloomhouse for me. They they're at that sort of higher level budget, not fun, you know, what I mean, not super budget, but still massive budget for movies. And then what they do is they'll farm out their special effects to a CGI company, not even actually attached to the production. It's a third party that
Right.
does it afterwards. And I'm sorry, but their movies are so bland.
And
Like
there's a huge
they're
disconnect
beige.
in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You see it with other. Actually, someone was going to bring up. You see other franchises, other genres just falling to bits right now. But the horror genres kept going.
Oh yeah. It
And
always seemingly reinvents itself.
yep, and do you think it's that pressure, the required pressure of limited budget, having to make the best of what you have, sort of fosters that ingenuity, the creativity that's required?
And I think about it too, because like if you have unlimited resources, that just means you throw money at problems, and more problems will come up. And you have to think quick on your feet. I was having this discussion the other day. It's just having that ability to, oh, this didn't happen, okay, so what's the solution here? We got to put our heads together, and that's where the team aspect of it comes together, and you figure it out within your means. And whether you have $2,500, $25,000, 2.5 million, 25 million, I imagine it all still comes down to the same basic problem solving skills,
Hmm.
and just having that idea, and then still trying to keep the story in line too. I mean, everybody has their processes and stuff, but I think it still comes down to that, no matter what your budget is, and just being true to what it is. Because everything's going to be like, you can't sit there and worry about like, oh, am I going to get this crowd behind it or that crowd behind it? You just hope that people dig it. You make
Hmm.
music, you hope they dig it. You write a novel, you hope they dig it. You make a horror film, you hope they dig it.
Yeah, that's one thing when I do reviews, I always focus on the storytelling because if that doesn't carry me along, I don't care about who's acting in it. I don't care about the special effects. I don't care about the locations as long as it makes sense. But if the story's not there, I find myself disengaging very quickly. But yet, a lot of stuff doesn't seem to worry about that, especially other genres. They go for shiny
Right.
lights on screen, and now they're wondering, like they're paying the price now because apathy set in. Like people have literally checked out.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest, one of the bigger hurdles now too, is that you have so much noise out in the field, and how do you make more noise to get people to get eyeballs on you, to keep the eyeballs on you too. So it's a never ending battle between having the idea, getting the idea out there, and then keeping the idea floating at long enough for people to see it. And again too, I think when we made one film, we kind of went into it very naive. I mean, I could use the word naive, because we knew what we wanted to do, but we just didn't understand that every time you start a story, you got to start from point A to point B to point C. So you have to reintroduce segments. When I went into this film, I was already thinking, well, I already almost have to start a movie at the end of another movie within that first 10 minutes. I got to grab you. That was one of the things that was definitely on my mind, is I got to
Hmm.
already draw the audience in the first 10 minutes, like with all this climactic showdowns, and then kind of bring you into another section of the story and then build it up again. So it's kind of that tidal wave effect. I think that's where we're now as an audience in some capacity too. I'm just kind of noticing those things where it's hard to tell a story that gradually builds up and you can sustain them for so long. But if you kind of give them bits and pieces of the story and then let it unfold again. I think that's also another very effective way of storytelling.
Actually, recently there when I reviewed weapons, that was I've seen the technique before, but it was
Yeah,
done very well, and I was actually pleasantly surprised for a modern movie to actually
right.
grip me. And I'm like, wow, I haven't felt this way in so long. Thank you, sort of thing.
I'm just so glad that there's more I hate to use the word content, but more films out there that of different storytelling techniques. I
Hmm.
saw Together, I saw The Substance, Weapons. I've watched all different types of horror films in the theater, no less, and it kind of reminds me of the heyday again, quite a bit of the heyday of of being able to see all these different types of genre films with all these different approaches, and just using today's technology, to help tell those stories, and that's great. I love it. It kind of gives me some idea of where to aim for in terms of storytelling too, but also not, and you can easily get stuck in your tropes. I think that's the biggest hurdle
Hmm.
for any filmmaker is like, oh, I know what works for me, then I'm going to stick with the tried and true. I'm not going to, it's always nice to turn the knobs a little bit left and right and see what just take a chance, and not hopefully worry that a studio is going to tear it apart, or even before it hits us, because I think that's the one thing that horror fans don't really think about, and I don't think about it when I go see movies. How much are we actually seeing of the original idea versus how much did it get whittled away in the whole process of getting it to you?
Well,
Because
that's
it seems like it's very common.
it seems especially I did a whole series on Clive Barker's movies.
Hmm.
Uh, some of some of my friends, and that's one thing we noticed is that first of all, the studio don't get Clive Barker, and they keep trying to
Oh yeah, no,
market everything as a slasher, but that's not him at all. It's his own thing. Um, and his stuff has been so sanitized and chopped
right,
up and distorted. Like, I don't know how he didn't end up swinging off something. Like, he's a very passionate man, and I don't
yeah.
understand how he still kept going because it's, uh,
I
uh,
it's funny, we were talking about Nightbreed, I
mhm,
remember seeing it in theaters when I first saw it, and I was just blown away by it, and yet I was maybe me and a handful of friends in an empty theater because I don't think anybody knew what they were getting into or cared for that matter
mhm.
back then, and it's such a visually stunning film, and, the makeup effects, the story, the characters and stuff. The book's great too,
Oh yeah,
but it's
Cabal, yeah,
very very, short version of the book. And then I got to see the director's cut, and then I was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, they definitely rearranged and reformatted this film quite a bit, from what he was originally thinking to what we got in the theaters back in '90." Yeah, it was that long ago, 35 years ago.
yeah, God, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
We should get our walking kids. I
Mhm.
remember when you
Yeah.
kids know
As you're
nothing.
saying, you get stuck in your tropes. It's like I always thought it was funny is I felt like the old guy on the set because most of my crew was in their 20s, and I'm
Oh dear.
in my late 40s. So it's just, definitely a different ideology amongst us all about like, things and just general things too and stuff like that. And definitely the hustle of making a low budget micro budget film in such a short amount of time. It does take a lot of manpower and long hours and crazy scheduling and stuff like that. And you got to have that stomach for it. You got to love this, you got to have the
Mhm.
passion for it. And it's tough for a lot of people, and it's not always glamorous, especially when you got the slime and the blood and the prosthetics and the heat and the sweat, and it can be very, very difficult.
Yep. I do believe the cast from the original Evil Dead are still traumatized.
Oh, I mean,
Like they still talk about it, like,
yeah,
you
it's
know,
like, well,
which
and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, film in July." They said it would be fun. They said it would be like summer camp, and it's just like, yeah, it's just hot
like I
and lots of
said,
bugs.
that video, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that just exemplified everything. I'm like, oh dear, you've had it rough.
Yeah, it was an experience, and again too, it's like you got to go through you got to go through all that to get to all the things. You got to turn off the AC to get good sound. You got to smog up the set to give it atmosphere. You got to camera placement's really important and stuff like that. There's all these techniques that
Mhm.
go in. It's very time consuming. It can be a little slow. that kind of stuff. And then you're hot and you just want to get through it all and stuff. And you got to really fight that urge just to phone it in, or just, oh, it's good enough. Let's move on.
Yeah.
No, you got to fight for it a little bit. I was like, well, let's try it again. Let's try like a variation on this take. Let's try something, it's hard. It's hard to negotiate all those things with a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. I did manage to watch. I didn't have a job just with a crazy schedule, but I did manage to watch The Date.
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
there's a genre, the vampire sort of genre, that has been, I know, almost done to death,
Oh, yes.
and you still managed to bring a little something new to the table, which I really appreciated. How difficult is that, especially
The
with
date is
vampires?
always
Like,
the date is what kind of got us the deal, actually, which is it's kind of funny in itself. I remember we were working on it, and it was one of these ideas that just kind of like everybody's been on a bad date, and all these things, but and you always run into people that are hiding things or holding things back from the other person. And what it would be funny if one was hiding the fact she's a vampire, the other one was hiding the fact, or not even aware, a Manchurian candidate, of what he truly is, in
spoilers.
contrast to her.
It's on YouTube. Check it out, folks. Honestly, it's worth it.
It's in Muerte. It was definitely it was an experience, and it was one of those things where, and I always find that, like, some of the best work comes out of collaborations with people. And I remember I was with my co-writer on that one, Michelle Banks, and we were at a bar, and we had these napkins, and we were like doing kind of like the card technique, but we were doing it on bar napkins, and writing the kind of putting the plot out on bar napkins on the bar, and trying to figure out the flow of the story on the bar, literally. And then that's kind of how the genesis of that film came to be and stuff. And then it was a really unique process. And yeah, it was really, I get a lot of, like, didn't see that one coming, and it's like, yeah, that was the point. Yeah, it was definitely something I was really kind of jazzed that people. It's one of those things. Either people are going to get the humor of it, or they're going to take it too seriously, or not seriously enough, that kind of thing. So it's finding that balance. I'm
Humor
always.
is a tricky one.
What was that?
Humor is a tricky one.
It is a very tricky. Humor is always hard to pull off. And it's all about timing. It's finding the right amount of deadpan versus the right amount of mugging it up, and all those kind of things too. So you got to. It's never a clear formula. It's
Mhm.
not like you can put 2 and 2 and 4, and then that's the formula. It's definitely something. It's something unique into itself.
Yeah, I think that's why studios, big studios, and have such a problem with it, uh, because it doesn't fit into a box, and they don't
Yeah,
like it. It's a gut instinctual thing. You're either funny or you're not, and you might be funny one moment but not the next. You can't just do the same thing over again. But that's life, isn't it?
right.
If
And
you
I
don't have a
think
lived experience.
too, nowadays, one of the funniest things I remember being told about titles and stuff, like, for your project and things, is like, I had to think of quote unquote searchable keywords. And I was like, oh, okay. I never really thought of the process in that way. It had to be a searchable keyword, I guess, for the algorithm and whatnot and stuff
I
like that. So
hate marketing. I'll be the first to admit
I
I
was
hate it. I despise it. I hate marketing language. I hate looking up stuff to do with marketing. It's one weakness of this channel because I absolutely hate going through that. Every time I go through, oh, I need to do a promotion phase, I just want to delete everything and just go, just nah, not doing this anymore. I'm done. It drives me mad.
I can totally understand that, working in marketing too. It's just, and you have to be very cued into things too, and it's very difficult even for me. Like, even with this film, I was really shocked, and I was, because normally you only get like certain amount of like traction with pictures and not a reel and this and that, and yet the most anything that I've gotten is just off of a simple post with pictures and a slight description on it, and it kind of blew up. I think, that worked in a way I wasn't expecting. And again, too, is there's no distinct formula to any of this. I feel for any filmmaker out there right now trying to figure out what's going to catch. What are the magic beans that are going to sprout the beanstalk from this whole thing. That's it's so difficult. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and what catches and what doesn't. You just have a good day or you have a bad day.
Mhm. That's the thing. Even in the YouTube sphere, doing this,
Yeah,
I found out recently that the legacy TV studios that nobody cares about and watches, as a last stand attempt, are buying their way into YouTube and actually just going, no, put our content first. That's the first thing people see.
right.
Nothing to do with buzzwords, uh, anything or good content. Just here, we'll just chuck you money. You just bury everybody else and show us. How do you compete against that?
You, I don't know if you do or not. It's very, yeah. I don't see how that's it's flooding, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, and that's back to my original question. Is there a way, as independent creators, we can find a way to collaborate post production? I think this is the bit that's missing,
Yeah,
is the post production part. And most of us, I don't want to do it. I want to have conversations and talk about movies. And I'm going to bring up a question here in a second, which this is the sort of stuff I want to talk about. I don't want to be sitting going algorithms and I've worked in data analysis for like 20 odd years. I know the spreadsheets and all are like it's dead. It's mind numbing. There's no joy or fun or creativity. That's not what I want to do anymore. I want to actually live life and enjoy what I do. But
right,
is there a way that we can start having the conversation and just as those people put their egos aside, because it's not about ego, it's just
right.
we start carving out our own little bit. The people, not other creatives, but the audience. Let the audience know, here, this stuff's here. We really want to give you a good time. Come check it out. It sounds simple, but I don't believe it is.
And sometimes it is just the simple gestures that you're appealing to your authentic audience, and it's like, hey guys, if you like this, this is what we're about. Hopefully, you'll follow us on this adventure. And then me and my other filmmaking compatriots over here, we're all on the same journey.
Hmm.
I hope you will follow us too. It's something as simple as that. And yeah, if we can get past our egos and our belief systems and whatever else and stuff like that, and then generally just keep the fans and or the people that are just wanting this type of stuff,
Hmm.
this type of film. I was about to say content, and I caught myself, and I was like,
Nice
no.
icon. That's just a
I
word.
Yeah,
It's just
it's just that word, but but truly cinema, film, and stuff like that. And whether if you like her stuff, whether you don't like her stuff, it's at first I think it's really hard, especially like when you first make a film and you get a lot of like, oh, it was great, or it was okay, it was, oh, it's awful, and stuff like that. And at first you're hypersensitive about it, and you're like, wow, I put my heart and soul into all this and stuff like that. But then it's like, okay, so what did work, what didn't work, how do I apply this to what we're working on now? And even if I were to do all this, is it going to matter? Because somebody will find something to pick apart,
Mhm.
and you can't let that sabotage your creative process. You have to go with it. I think anybody, whether you're an actor or a filmmaker or a musician, an artist, and stuff like that, you have to be aware of it, but not let it drive everything in your process.
I think it's something that puts a lot of people off. Maybe you can uh, clarify this for me, but people don't want to get creative because they're afraid of trolls. And I think you just get your first troll, get it over and done with. You
Yeah,
get that first person that comes out, and some of the comments I've had over the years has been hilarious. And I wish I'd saved them at the start. Now I just put them online and just make fun of them, have a laugh about it. But should people be afraid of that? Oh, someone's going to get really personal with you just randomly, as they're hiding behind an avatar while you're actually putting yourself out there. You know, why should people be afraid of that?
I mean, it's a way of life now, essentially. I mean, and if you're not going to be comfortable with it, then probably it shouldn't be one of those things you do. And if you're willing to take so much of it before it becomes hostile and stuff like that, then yeah, just definitely, accept that it exists and then move on, and just continue on your own path. And I was joking around the other day. We were talking about it, and it's like, you get to a certain age and you're just like, how many more of these do I have in me? And is it going to be appreciated? Is it eventually going to pay off at some point or not? And you have to have those serious conversations with your as a filmmaker, with your partners, with your cast and crew and stuff like that. You got to say, hey, look, all we're trying to do is our best work, and it's never going to be easy, and it's always going to be difficult. I think that should be the first thing you do before you shoot one frame of anything,
Hmm.
is just be very upfront with your people working with you, and just saying, hey, we got to try our best, and we're not going to make everybody happy, but as long as we're all on the same page here.
Just out of interest, it just came to me. Like you only had 9 days to actually shoot, but with the use of technology like this, etc., are you able to use that to your advantage in terms of table reads, for example? Can you get everybody on a Skype call, or though Skype's going now, but a Zoom
We
call or something, and do
we
that and
did
actually?
actually. Yeah, we did. We had the actors that couldn't be there, we put them on a video screen, and we had a conference room set up, and we got about 90% of the cast to sit around in a round table with the other actors in the room too, and they could see us and we could see them. And we read through it, and I was already taking notes. I was like, okay, that sounded fine. That might need a little bit of work and stuff like that. And it definitely does help the creative process in terms of what you are going to keep and what you're going to maneuver around a little bit and stuff like that. And of course, all your best laid plans go out the door when you get on set and things are not the same, or the conditions change, or this is not there, or something else is not working. And I know my producers, God bless Lewis and Oscar, they were doing their best trying to keep everything running and the behind the scenes, but it is a constant negotiation with homeowners and locations and all those kind of things, all these things that we try to keep under control, so when the actors show up on set, that they can get right to work and everything goes. And your typical production,
Mhm.
issues, your typical production um, minutia, I guess is the word. You got to go through it all and stuff, and it does take a village to make these things happen. But yeah, you again, it's just, yeah, making a movie is it's tough.
Yeah, actually, it was another conversation I had a while ago. There, somebody was making a movie. It was like the day before. It was all centered around this abandoned house, no issue. But the owner just 1 day before shooting, everybody had moved, like in the hotel the
Right.
week before the location, and then the owner just randomly went, "Nah, it's not happening."
Yeah.
For reasons, there was no health and safety protocol
Reasons. Yeah,
checked
I
out.
think we actually ran into that ourselves at one point. We had a location pull out like a week before shooting, and scrambling, trying to get another location secured, and then doctoring it up to match another location and stuff like that. And it's a lot of just quick maneuvering, and going back to how your technology affects these things too. I could definitely use all that technology to get all these people together, and also kind of take it back and work again on the script and make those changes. And then when we get on the script, then on location, we're changing things around again. It's
Mhm.
just, it's being that quote unquote fluid filmmaking style, and trying to keep within the realm of what we initially set out to do, but also making the concessions where they needed to be, especially on this kind of budget.
Is that back down to the integrity you're talking about? You
Yeah.
know what your vision is, not to compromise that. As long as that's sort of carrying you through, you can be flexible.
Yeah, it's kind of it's you have to be flexible. You have to trust your director of photography and your actors. You have these discussions before you get on camera, and then you go and you do it, and you're in a tight, hot, cramped room with no AC and 100 degrees outside, and you do it, and then you come back, you look at, say, okay, that's good. Or if you have the ability to do video playback and see it from there, and give them the okay, because yeah, the last thing you want to do is flood a compartment full of bodies and add to the heat that's already building up on set.
Yep.
And yeah, people are going to get cranky, they're not going to be happy, things are going to get tense in some cases and stuff like that, and you just got to work through them. You have to have that ability to keep the train on the tracks.
Right. Let's have a fun question. We're getting very serious. That's a when it comes to blood, do you use different mixture if someone's stabbed and gutted versus somebody punched in the mouth and have to spit it out? This is what I
Ah,
love about
yes.
home DVDs, the special features,
Yes.
that the crazy recipes, the mad science, which is specific to horror movies, that I feel like's missing now.
It's the secret sauce, as they
Yep.
say.
So
Yes.
do you have different types of secret sauce?
Yes, and I got a really good story for this one. I'm going to give props out to our special effects makeup consultant, Tom Irvin. He's worked on Lord of the Illusion, Tank Girl, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was our consultant, and my crew, Amy and Adrian Martinez, Amy Alton, and the rest of the team, we were basically taking his recipes that he used at working for Steve Johnson's XFX and Optic Nerve and stuff like that. And one of the interesting things, especially the differences between the types of bloods, was like it was like 50% Kara syrup, food coloring, water, but adding vodka into it to give it that fluidity to it.
Mhm.
So it didn't beat up, it didn't give you that kind of syrupy look to it, but when you put it on your hand, it would smear like blood. That was one of the recipes. And then the dilution factor for stabbing, because there's quite a few stabs in this movie, and we had to have different rigs built for it. So I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, different blood formulas for different things. And of course, like we needed blood to be more viscous, so we would add this stuff called ultra slime to it.
Mhm.
So it was very stringy and it read better on camera versus the atomized version of it too. So that was another blood mixture that we threw in there. We generated quite a bit of blood on this film for different effects and different creatures in the film too, because there's a lot of creature effects in the film. So we definitely went through a lot of uh, different types of lubrication, different types of the ultra slimes, the Kara syrups, and all that kind of stuff to give it all that texture, that the stuff you can't do in a computer. I'm just
Yep.
going to be honest with you. The textures, the viscousness of the blood and the slime. It's just something you can't really do well on a computer.
So that is something. The official policy of this channel is that digital blood should be made illegal for horror movies. What do you think the appropriate sentence should be to somebody that uses digital blood?
Only if you need to. I mean,
No,
I'm not.
I mean sentence. I mean in the gulag. What? How many years should they get for doing it?
I don't know. I've used it a few times myself, but I think it's like Jurassic Park. You do it when you need to, very sparingly. Number one, very sparingly if you can. I'm not going to say it's a cardinal sin, but I would say it's definitely one of those you're in a low
You
budget
see it.
situation. You can't ruin the set. You can't ruin this. You can't ruin that. The carpet's worth more than the movie. So you have to shoot a clean take on it and hope for the best. Or I would say, God, it has to be something very dire. It has to be like no other choice. Other than that, no. It has to be real. It has to be
Like
on set.
you see it and it's just like, oh my god, no.
Oh,
And
you
I'm
can
like,
always smoke it. Yeah, I mean, you can always smell
just
it. You can always.
to me, it takes me straight out. You know what I mean? You
Oh
suspend
yeah.
disbelief. There's a lot of forgiveness, but to me, that is unforgivable. It's just,
I don't want to see it doing this.
yeah.
I'll be the first one to say, don't do that, or don't shoot it at the camera. Don't.
Oh
Yeah,
god, that is the.
yeah. That
Oh,
always looks very. That always gives it away and stuff. I definitely we were definitely adhering to the Dick Smith Caro syrup formulas. I still have them in my Fangoria from 30 years ago.
mhm.
I had the 35. I got in 1990. Yeah, it was all of Dick Smith's blood formulas, and then the stuff that Tom gave us as well that he used on different projects too, that back in the 90s and 2000s and stuff. So
The 90s were like
yeah,
10 years ago.
yeah, I'll go with that.
No, what are you talking? Yeah.
Sure, not arguing. I'm going with you on that one.
Yeah, it was only 10 years ago, the 90s. It wasn't that far.
Mm.
God, it gets depressing sometimes, doesn't it? You just realize.
I try not to think about it honestly, but I keep sharing the memes too, so that's kind of counterproductive as well. So yeah, but going back to the blood formulas, yes, we used quite a bit of the red stuff, and there was only, I don't think we've run into a situation yet where we've needed to use digital blood. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm going to do any kind of digital replacement, I'm going to use the real stuff on green screen first before I would actually use a generated image. So it's still technically real.
Yeah, but
It's
you're
just
sort
layered
of happy
on top
medium.
of it. Yeah. It's just because we couldn't do it somewhere for real because of whatever reasons. You usually run into reasons you can't destroy the set for whatever reason. So, but that rarely ever happens. But Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's a cardinal sin if you're just gonna throw it everywhere, and it's not real. It's
Yeah,
not a horror film.
it just takes
I'm
you out of
sorry.
the movie.
I guess I made my stance there.
No, no, I'm totally agree. Like I said, I think that should just be clink clink into the
Yeah,
into the place, breaking rocks.
I'm trying not to say it's impossible, but
Fear. That's still fear in people's
Okay,
minds, not a
so
first
whenever you
choice.
hire actor
Yep.
for your horror movie project, so you're subconsciously creating a unified universe. Is there? Oh,
Are people not tired of unified universes now? Is that
actually,
not like done and dusted?
10 years ago, I was kind of in that mindset that it was a unified. There was a couple of short films I did where it was a unified universe, but they were kind of like roaming between stories and stuff, and but very loosely. I wouldn't say it was like very structured Marvel Comics type um, storytelling in that capacity. But I've done that before. I'm a lot more hesitant these days with multiverses and combined universes and stuff like that. Now I feel that's kind of just playing into the genre or the tropes at this point now. But yeah, and then too, like, I don't know, a lot of directors are they get comfortable working with actors and they know what their range is and stuff like that. So you'll find yourself writing to the people that you know, that you can trust, that will show up every day, they'll have your back and make the process a little bit more comfortable for you. But then again, too, it's just sometimes it's good to take chances with new people and see where they take you on a new adventure.
Well, I was liking the theater trip, like a traveling
Uh,
theater trip.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
same.
yeah.
It's the same actors. Like Buddy Calvin from Seventh Street. He's on quite a bit in the show, and he's the same actors he uses most of the times.
Right.
The fun part is if you don't initially recognize an actor because they've morphed into a character. No, that's always good. You don't know it's, oh, there's Tim, there's Jax. You sort of get to know people, but uh
There's a
actors
sense of
are as well.
familiarity
Yeah,
with it too.
you get to
Yeah.
know, but they play different roles. Um, that
I guess
was
Edgar Wright does it with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost quite a bit, that with their universe too.
oh, the
That's very
Cornetto
similar
trilogy.
to
Oh yeah.
that.
Um,
But they're all different films, but
mhm.
they're kind of connected by the actors too. I dig that more than trying to keep the storyline going between movies
Yep.
versus unless it's like a spin-off of something too. But I in some of my earlier projects, yeah, I did use a lot of the same actors and stuff like that. Plus, I felt like on this last film with Evil Inheritance too, we spent months going through casting and casting directors and trying to find the right mix of people that would, and they stuck. And I got to give credit to all my casting crew. I mean, 90%, no, more than 90% of everybody stuck with us from last summer to this summer.
Mhm.
I didn't have to recast hardly anybody. I think one person out of that entire 23 people in the film.
That's good going.
Yeah, and they stayed, and then even through the whole shoot, they were there for. Again, I cannot thank my casting crew for giving me so much time, so much effort, and I'm so appreciative of everybody that put their time and effort into this project.
No, that's good. And it'll be an experience as well. Because there's a bit of hardship, because there's time constraints, and everyone has to pull together. That's something that sticks with you, which I think a lot of people forget. This whole click and collect world of
Yeah,
instant gratification. It's not going to be now that they'll remember it. It'll be 10 years down the line when they
yeah.
know whatever
Hopefully,
they're
they will
doing.
look at it like as a summer camp type thing, or
Mhm.
that kind of memory of having that experience on the set and stuff. It's going to those places that you wouldn't normally go to, that kind of thing. And definitely getting to work with a lot of new people and getting familiar with everybody's process and stuff like that, and discovering things I would have never thought. I think those are the skills that you pick up as a filmmaker. It's like, oh yeah, you've done this, now I've done that. How do I make this work for me later in another project? All those kind of things, all those things that you pick up here and there.
Mhm. Yeah. Has there ever been a case, obviously not name names or anything, but has somebody come onto the cast that didn't fit and it became really obvious?
Oh, I mean, yeah,
Nothing to do with acting ability or anything else, but just someone came up because subconsciously, like you said, you've got a troop, you've created a vibe. everyone sort of gels together, and then somebody's come on board and not got it. Has that?
Yeah, actually, it's funny, yeah, because that was one of the processes too. I was never really big on chemistry reads, and I just basically went with the people that I liked, and and of course too, you're working on such small budget, you're not inundated with thousands of actors and stuff like that. So then you're casting based on a 1-to-1, and then you put them in the room, and then you're starting to see what the dynamics are going to come through. And some people, just if they're all kind of similar, then they kind of gel well together. And then you'll bring in somebody that's a little bit of an outsider, a little bit more quieter, a little less outgoing, more reserved, and all that kind of stuff, and they give a different type of vibe to the set. So on this film, in particular with Evil Inheritance, we spent months casting, and once we got the people together, then it was like, okay, let's put them in a room and see, let's do callbacks, and let's see how they act with each other, and see if there's that spark, that's going to carry the film, because essentially if you don't care about any of these people, you're not going to care what happens to them. So it was really important that, I saw that, and then I started to see where certain people clicked, and I was like, okay, so this is the team. So yeah, it was and that's as a director too. I mean, you talk to any director and they'll tell you, it's like most of your work is settled when you get the right people in the right parts. Because then it's just a conversation that we have, and they just know what they're going to do, and you just got to guide them between scenes essentially. But they get it, they know what they're doing, they know their character, they know the scene. I think that's paramount for any director working with an actor, is that they understand what the character is about, what their motivation is, how the story goes, all those kind of things. It just lends itself to the story.
That's one thing I've noticed about mainstream as well. There's all these certified people now, intimacy coordinators, blah blah blah, and it's like a committee meeting with each actor rather than just.
Right.
I don't agree with that. I don't know what your take is, but I just think it's just become a lot of grifters getting involved. Hence why budget
Right. And
crunches
then
are
too,
stupid.
it's like if you're going to cast solely on somebody's name, and yeah, what if they don't bring the charisma that they would have on another project to this project, and then you have them there and they're not gelling well with the crew, or they're not gelling well with the cast or whatnot and stuff like that. So I mean, and I imagine that happens a lot because their name does bring value to your project and stuff, and it does open more doors for you. I guess that's one of those kind of evils that you'll run into in the production of a film and stuff. But I think I'd rather cast a bunch of people that work well together and they build magic, versus trying to make magic out of something that happened 10 years before you,
Yeah.
20 years before you.
I don't understand name dropping. That doesn't personally, it doesn't impress
I
me.
just I think it's a bit of marketing, a bit of ego. It's all those things that generally, I understand the business aspect of it, but I think it also has a detrimental effect too. If it doesn't work, if you're not casting the actor based on their abilities and just trying to cash in. And that's a tough thing with a lot of. I get the idea that producers want to cash. They want to make their return. They get the
Nobody wants
cash.
to fail. I don't
No, yeah,
understand.
you don't
Like
want to set up
nobody
to
wants to
fail.
do
Yeah.
this to fail.
But you definitely don't want to shoehorn something that doesn't work.
Is that
I
back
think.
to once again the integrity, the intention? Like
Mhm.
I feel more than see it when I'm watching something or I'm reading something. There's like an instinct, when somebody wants to actually entertain you,
Right, yeah.
and
It should
when
you
they
should
don't.
have that. Like, I want to get a reaction out of you. I
Even a
want you
bad
to think
movie.
about it. Even a bad movie, yeah. Even if it's a movie that's not like great, you're definitely trying to push something from them, or get some type of reaction from it. That's what I always love, telling stories to somebody and seeing, like, and this is the kicker, and then, oh my gosh, that's the jazz of a filmmaker should get out of telling stories. It's like, you'll never believe what happened next, and you this is how it started, this is how it went, and this is how it ended, and everybody's like, wow, that's quite the story. And then you're thinking, how do I make this into a film?
How is that process? Because obviously, I'm more of a hobby writer than a writer, but authors have this thing in their head. They want to
Yeah.
see their work go into film, but it's a completely different process from what I believe. They actually get into this a screen, into a script. Do you have a problem with authors trying to approach you? And I want to make this, and then you
No,
sort of like,
honestly, I've, I don't. No, not really. I've never really come into that. I've had. It's kind of, and I was talking to an author recently that just was interested in what we were doing and stuff
mm,
like that, and it's really hard to get outside of your tribe, and click with somebody that you've never worked with before, and but at the same time, again, too, you can kind of start to develop an identity, and you want to be able to tell a good story, or even if you have a good story, you can relay it to somebody that's a better writer, and they kind of take your ideas and conform them in a much more cohesive fashion as best as you can. If it's such a process, and it takes. I think I started writing Evil Inheritance during the pandemic, so I started somewhere in 2022, and it took me about a year on and off to write it, and it kept. I mean, in terms of like drafting it, so I think it went through many different drafts because I'm not the fastest writer in the world, but I had all the time in the world,
mm,
during the pandemic, so I could definitely get a project, written. And then I think for a lot of filmmakers, I don't, me specifically, it's getting somebody to read your script and to give you both the positives and the negatives in a constructive way, and getting that feedback. And that's where the table reads come in great. You get your
mm,
friends together, we read the script together. Oh, that didn't sound right. Go back, make your adjustments, bring in a cast. They read it. Okay, that worked. That didn't work. Kind of, let's do another draft. So I that's my process about going about it. And it's definitely getting the feedback, but also sticking true to your original idea and not getting swayed too many different ways.
yeah, you know what you
Somewhere
want
in
to
the core of
achieve.
things. Yeah, that makes sense. That changes things, but that changes things for the better. Being open, but not being too wishy-washy with your content.
Have you had people like just because they're giving a bit of feedback, they think they're then taking over your project? You get
Not
too
not
pushy.
particularly. No, no. It's generally everybody's. We bring every because it's one of these things too. Like if you're spending 2 years in pre-production, raising money, standing in a tent, raising awareness, doing the Indiegogos, making getting all these things together, all the pieces of the bridge together to bridge it together to make the film. Yeah, I mean, unless you were there from the get-go, I mean, yeah, it's definitely the people, the authors, project. You
Mm,
bring it on board. Yeah, you got your ideas. They're great ideas. I'll say yes. If they're an idea, sure. But it's got to be collaborative, but generally, pretty much, it's got a director, producers, and then the crew following through and stuff. Open, but not like, oh, anybody can come in there and just uh, you know uh, tackle the project away.
yeah, it's um I've just noticed that with other things that some people think because maybe take their suggestion on board, all of a sudden they're running the thing, and it's like, whoa, where'd this come
Yeah,
from?
it's just like it's and in like when you're in the process of making a film too, it's just like there's not a real sense of urgency to like exert all that. It's just like we got to get through this.
Hmm.
That should be really what everybody's trying to do. It's like we got to make this. There's no time to really sit there and argue about who's doing what, whose idea was. I mean, most of the ideas are there, and it's like, hey, can we try this, or hey, can we yeah, sure, let's see if it works. And it only helps in editing too, because that's really where the power comes in. It's like once you get all your footage in and start putting it together, that's where everything that works, that didn't work, all those kind of things. Oh, that was a great idea. That idea didn't kind of pan out the way I thought.
Hmm. Okay. Actually, seeing you mentioned the pandemic, there's a pandemic related question. Here, YouTube, you just need to step up your game. Twitch is winning tonight, so you may get involved here. Any practices on the current set that carried over from the pandemic, like hand sanitizer, masks, like question with food safety?
Um, definitely keeping everybody healthy with the food. I mean, with any other production too, it's just like I think what did, people got sick. That's this thing. Like everyone was getting colds and whatnot and stuff like that. That's stuff you can't control and stuff. But definitely, making sure that they're fed well, plenty of water on the set, plenty of breaks, definitely lots and lots of breaks and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I don't think anybody was really thinking about the pandemic at the time when we were making the film. I mean, it was, it's, I like to say it's in the rear view, but it's always going to be there no matter what and stuff like that. But when you put so many people in a stew together, yeah, it's certain, somebody's going to get ill and
Oh, yeah,
all that kind
that's
of
any,
stuff.
any group of people
That's
if you're
just
close quarters.
even before the pandemic and stuff like that. You get enough people together, somebody's going to come down with something
Mhm.
over a
That
sustained amount of time.
that's
Happens
an
at work
interesting
all
one
the
about yeah, that's an interesting one about food actually, because the temptation would be to get takeout and junk food, but is that really sustainable for
No, not at all.
I couldn't eat takeaway all week.
I
That would
wouldn't even entertain a pizza unless they wanted it,
mhm,
and generally, we had some great food. There was some great food on the set, towards the weekends and stuff like that. We had a friend of ours make burgers and hot dogs on the grill, and that was probably the best I ate the entire time on the set and
mhm,
stuff like that. But when you're on the go, definitely lots of protein bars and nut bars and snacks of that kind of like deli meats, salads, subs, that kind of stuff. Just generally trying to get everybody's dietary, because I don't eat a lot of bread. I can't, so I definitely stayed away from all that and just ate pure protein the whole time. So but everybody has their taste, and we try to cater as much as we can to what people are, so they're just not eating junk food all the time.
mhm.
I'd prefer not.
Is there an element of right? This is mealtime. Everyone sort of sits down. Whether you're doing something or not, just stop and I don't know, get a stew on the go or a chili or something. Was there ever an element of that, or is that just not a factor?
No, I think. Are you talking about like a lull
During the
in it?
shoot, like actually set a time. Okay, here's mealtime.
Yeah, yeah. We
Sort of
usually
thing.
call mealtime like 4 hours into shooting and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
then if it goes longer than 8 or 10, then of course we take another meal break if they needed it and stuff like that. So I always find too is like if you eat too much, it's hard to keep your energy levels, back where they were right before lunch and stuff like that. So it's like, it's always trying to keep that balance with everybody too. It's like trying to keep their 11 a.m. energy the same as their 11 p.m. energy kind of thing. So keeping that going for so long is always very difficult. But I think meal times are really important too for a number of reasons. One of them is just for people to get to know each other and to get along.
That was the point I was trying to
Yeah,
make.
yeah,
Of
absolutely.
the
I don't
whole
want
everybody sitting
people
around the
doing this.
table, yeah,
Yeah,
or everyone sitting on their own with a
yeah.
sandwich, just horsing
Yeah,
over.
no, no. I think that's where the relationships start to build and all the conversations about things start to really come up and all that kind of stuff. That's where I think the whole it's very important. It's really good for the camaraderie of everything. And you never know. Then these guys might work on another film and they can take somebody that they liked working with off of this one.
Hmm.
That's always a distinct possibility. It's great networking, if anything.
That's one thing about networking. You don't know where it's going to go or who's going to meet who because of what. Like I've had
Right.
people come on here who somebody else has recommended who I may haven't spoken to for about a year and a half. And all of a sudden, oh, such and such recommended me. Like, oh, right, really? I haven't spoken to them in ages. You think they're out of your life. Um, you never know it's like dropping a pebble into the pond, isn't it? You just don't know where the ripples are going to go.
Yeah, it's always going to be like yeah, it's always like like friendships will be forged, all these things. Hopefully everybody gets along. That's generally where all the chemistry reads were also very important too. It's just like everybody you can see it, and then it always happens. Like I noticed that the cast started to form like a bond and stuff, and they seem to get along really well and stuff. So you hope for those things, and hopefully it translates on camera that they generally seem
Mhm.
like they knew each other, they got along well, all that kind of stuff. So it carries through, I think, hopefully.
Yeah, I was just recording a video before we went to live here for a movie review, and the two main characters supposed to be in love with each other, and it's zero chemistry.
No chemistry. Yeah,
None at all. And you're like, where did this? It was just like a script that said, oh, this needs to happen for the plot. But it was like a brick, bonk. You're like,
and it's
what?
like
Where did that come
very
from?
suspicious. Yes, yeah, that was my thing from all my other projects too, was just making sure that, because I've run into that in the past. I think you did mention that and stuff. And yeah, there have been actors that don't get along, or that they set the stage for something that doesn't translate well on camera. So it's really good if you can get your team together and kind of have those, I guess I hate to use the word team building things, but yeah, your team building projects, like where you're making social media videos for Indiegogo and kind of getting them into their character a little bit and
So
doing
make
all
it
these.
practical rather than being
Yeah,
contrived. It's all for the project.
yeah. It helps the project, but it also helps them kind of get comfortable with each other because they're going to have to be working with each other
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So I think those quote unquote team building exercises are really important too, pre actual shooting of the film.
Yep. I think that's when I put the offer to you because when you were going on set, and I've had people before bring like some cast members on board, because they all just happen to be in the same place, and that's one of the things I put to you as an option, for the chat, as if it happened to be feasible, because yeah, sometimes just all right, we're all going to do this now, right? But hype up the project and everyone's in the zone. Um, it gives a sort of different energy, and then people don't realize they're doing it, but it happens to them when they go back to doing the job. It's like, oh, they're suddenly energized because they've got the pride in them. They've just talked about what
Yeah,
they're
they went
involved
through
in,
something.
and that,
They
that
got it
pride they
done.
didn't realize was there. And the grind's worth
Yeah,
it.
it does. It definitely. I hope. Yeah. Despite all the scheduling conflicts and heat and those contact lenses. Oh my god, those drove everybody batty and stuff. But it looks great. But
Mhm.
yeah, contacts are a pain to wear and to maintain and stuff like that. But they get through all that. They went through this whole process, and then hopefully within a year, some people are asking me, it's like when the movie's going to come out, and I was like, well, if it's anything like we went through last time, which was the Muerte film, we put it out, we turned in all the deliverables and stuff like that. It was usually out within the year, so hopefully within 2026. So hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that will be out fall of 2026.
Mhm.
And because these are your months where all the horror content should be coming up left and right and stuff, giving the options to the people, what they want to see, and they want to see, I'll be the first one to admit that Evil Inheritance is a lot of creature effects, a lot of prosthetic makeups, old school 80s style kind of a horror film. I try to stay within kind of like something similar to something we've probably seen in the 80s and 90s, but then kind of flip it a little bit and give it a little bit of a twist here and a little nudge there, and so those are all my greatest hopes for this film and ultimately I just want to make this movie very entertaining,
Mhm.
you know.
Any use of drones on set to get high altitude shots or low shots?
Yes.
Um, I'll preface this. I'm suspicious of any movie that starts with a drone shot.
Oh yeah,
Any
and
movie that starts with a drone shot, I'm thinking, oh god, here we go. Because normally it's nice, crystal clear, the music's nicely rendered over the top, and then it goes down, and then you hear and the shaky
yeah.
camera, and you're like, oh no, here we go.
No, yeah, no, those are the two things. Okay, so giving out special props to Steve Carr because he was our drone pilot and one of our production assistants on the film, and he did some great photography because we had this great house that was built in 1909, which is where most of the exteriors of the film and some of the interiors were at, and it just lent so much atmosphere to the film, and we need it in the, you can't, I mean, we could have gotten a crane shot and stuff like that, but drones give you that opportunity to get so many different angles that you wouldn't have gotten before. So we definitely, I mean, I'll use a drone shot where I think it's needed, but
Mhm.
for most of it, I want everything pretty much at height level, eye level with the cast and stuff like that. The only time I think the shots should kind of change a little bit is like POVs of the monsters, or if you're trying to make your actors look a little bit more diminutive against your villain, you always kind of shoot them at a high angle, shooting
Please
down
tell
on
me you're not using Alien 3 fisheye camera.
the what?
You know the Alien 3 fisheye camera?
Oh no, 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 no.
It's like
You're talking about
absolutely
the
god
fisheye
awful.
effects?
Yeah, the fisheye effect where things
No,
chasing people, and you're like, oh, well, what am I watching? Please stop that.
no. The creature has a
that
point of
that
view, but
still
it's
makes me
within a
shudder
state.
today.
I would rather not put a. I don't think we used any kind of bent lens. I'm trying to think. No, we didn't actually. Everything was shot with normal lenses. So yeah, everything's pretty. Yeah, I know the fisheye is kind. I would, if I was going to put a fisheye, it would have to be in post at this point now because I don't think we shot
Mm.
anything with a fisheye.
I think that killed the idea that that movie because they were some of the worst
Well, we
scenes.
didn't need to see what the aliens saw. I don't
Yeah,
think either. I
but
mean, because we never saw it in the first two movies. It was always kind of.
in the
It was always
shadows,
kind of
surprising that
implied that they could see, but you never saw
yeah,
eyes on the creature. So I think that's kind of a strange way of. I mean, it's a way to approach the the concept of the alien sight, but
mm,
for this film in particular, that wherever the creatures needed, it definitely kind of Spielberg, I guess. It's very much the Jaws mentality.
mhm.
I only want to show the creatures in glimpses so they don't lose their power on camera. Same thing with the shark. Same thing with like any of your really cool monsters, at least for the first bits of the film, because you got to build that mystery of what these things are going to look like. And then I'm also a fan too. I mean, I'm trying not trying to give anything away, but I think you got to see variations of things too.
Mhm.
You can see like a horde of the same something, vampires, zombies, werewolves, and stuff like that, and then they start to blend together. But if you can create something that has like different variations of the same design, it always looks like it's always kind of
It's
alternating between shots.
but it's not a way that practical. That's something that practical effects can only achieve. That's where
Yeah,
digital things start to become morphed and blended. Um, the only type of sort of anime is claymation, for example. Everything's unique just because of the nature of it and practical effects. That sort of lends to it. I think that's part of the problem with CGI that it's not being used right and just as a crutch as opposed to a
yeah.
creative tool.
I always was of the mind of this. I don't know. A lot of filmmakers might have different opinions of this, but my opinion of it was, back in the day, with a makeup effect, you usually did the setup to it, and it's the same thing with the CGI effect as well. It's like you show enough of it in real before you have to add something in there and then go back to reality. So it's the same thing with CGI. If there's like a practical effect that goes only so far because of whatever the reason is, then you do one master shot or whatever shot needs to fill in that part, and then you go back to your prosthetic, your actor or whatever, and those kind of things. So you basically, it should be used as like what makes the most sense to get to these shots, not just one continuous shot with a bunch of CGI thrown at you and a bunch of lights and flashing things, but you got to in your head think, okay, it starts this way, goes that way, this is my VFX shot, and then back to reality.
Mhm. No, cool. I suppose we're nearly at the end, so we'll just wrap up a couple of sort of personal questions. What was your first sort of experience of horror? What was it actually drew you into the horror genre?
Oh, that's a really
Was it
good
a
question.
film, movie?
Oh,
Sorry, a
yes.
book? Was it a poster? But can you remember like the first thing that made you
Yeah,
go, "Ooh,
I have a couple of vivid horror movie moments. I think the first horror movie I remember seeing that scared me so bad, I was about like 6 or 7, was American Werewolf in London,
that
and,
still holds up so well."
but when you're little, and
Mhm.
when you're a little person and you see a big monster like that eating, going, just the glimpses that I remember seeing like this, as a child, it just stuck with me. And I wasn't necessarily into horror movies at that age, obviously, but I remember that being something. My grandparents, I watched a lot of films with them, so I watched a lot of the classics, on Saturday nights on the USA Network, uh, Saturday Nightmares and stuff like that. I would see a lot of the classic horror films and stuff. I would probably say either Nightmare on Elm Street or one of the Evil Dead films, either one or two, because I think
Mhm.
I saw them concurrently, where the fan really came into play. It was like the late '80s. That was the height of like your Fangorias were everywhere, your
Mhm.
your Starlogs, your
I think it's around about
Gorzone.
86 when everything just horror
Yeah,
wise
it just
really cemented.
that I was about 12 or 13, 11, 12, 13 in that area, and that's just where those horror movies were just kicking at that time, and then it just became like the video store culture, and then it was just like a tidal wave. I had Fangoria magazine with all the reviews, and I was just checking them off, trying to find all the horror films in the magazine, just absorbing all the material.
Mine was definitely through Nightmare on Elm Street's always been my first
Yeah,
love.
it just left such an impression.
Sequels, not so much, but definitely have first
No, the
movie
sequels
was
are
always
very hit or miss.
yeah.
It's, you know, you're always trying to follow in the footsteps of something. So how do you make it the same, but you have to make it different, but you got to figure out the magic in that
Mhm.
too. Some of them are better than others. So,
Okay, we've done a whole segment talking about it.
oh yeah,
We have an icons in horror, so we'll take like a figure in horror and we'll go through all their back catalog every so often. Yeah, so we did Freddy Krueger and all the iterations.
hit or I just couldn't get behind that remake though. That was a tough one.
I refused to watch it. It took me about 10 years to watch it. I only watched it in like
Yeah,
2019 or 2020.
that to me
Um,
was a prime example of too many cooks in the kitchen
it
trying to
could
get
have
a.
been good though.
It could have been.
I like Jackie Earl Haley. I think he's
Yeah, I think he's a wonderful actor.
uh, and he brings an intensity that Robert Englund didn't. He could have changed it, but you could, you could just see the studio in the background
Oh, to
poking.
me there was something weird, strangely generic about it though.
Mm,
The
there
way
was
it was presented.
an element of the bravery that was needed, and the chickened out at the end.
Yeah.
They could have been really brave with that and set it up. I just think revenge for a wrongdoing is what set this all off. But they were scared, and if they had maybe stuck with that, that would have been a great reboot. But yeah, they killed it. You know what I mean? They killed any chance of carrying on, and I don't think realistically, and hopefully it doesn't happen for a long time. But as long as Robert England's still around, there's never
Yeah,
going to
but
be
I think
another.
he's just I don't think
It
he
doesn't matter whether he's going to
stays
act or
around if
not.
he wants to do it.
I mean, just as long as he's around,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's never going to be another Freddy Krueger. I
It's gonna
mean,
be hard to duplicate that, no
yeah,
matter who you put in that part. It was just the time, it was the era,
yeah,
it
that and
works in
him,
the new
and
face.
yeah, that's what I mean. And as long as he's still around, that's never. Everyone's going to see him. It's
Mhm.
synonymous,
It's
which
always
is
gonna be the
funny
shadow over it.
because I remember I first saw Robert England in V
Yeah, no,
as
that's
Willie,
how I knew him as Willie.
and yeah, and I'm like, what's Will? That's Willie out of V. What?
Mhm.
I had a bit of a meltdown. I think that's what really drew me into that movie because I'm like, no,
I even remember seeing him on the Roger Corman film. I think I saw that in passing, but it was more sci-fi. It was like Galaxy of Terror too. So yeah, it was all within around the same time. Yeah, but yeah, Freddy Krueger is obviously his signature.
mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And I suppose just to wrap up, the most important question is what's next down the pipeline for you? What have you got coming up?
Well, right now the biggest thing for me is to wrap up shooting a phase three. Basically, phase three is just one particular sequence in the film that's going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more effort on our part, and I have a very strong urge to make this part of the film very unique and as much as I can, within our realm of what we have available to us. So that's coming up hopefully in late November, early December, and we can wrap up that with any other reshoots on the film. And then hopefully by that point, we're about maybe so many months into post production, so we can start, getting the final cut of the film done. And then hopefully we'll have Evil Inheritance released, sometime next year, and hopefully everybody will be into, if horror's still as hot as it is right now, it just seems like every week there's a horror film in theaters no less,
Yeah.
not even just so much streaming, but in theaters, and things to watch and things to dissect. So yeah, definitely have an Evil Inheritance come out sometime next year, early mid to late next year, all things willing. And then I have another horror idea I'd like to do at some point, but again, it's still in the early stages of scripting. And I like to mix it up too. I was kind of working on a kind of a dramatic piece, and I have an outline for it, and I'm working on the story. Of course, like I'm thinking about how to make it, how it will, because I know that there's not a market for low budget dramas as much as there is low budget horror films and stuff like that. And most people wouldn't probably see the guy that directed Muerte Tales of Horror and Evil Inheritance as the guy that's going to direct something a little more in that vein or in that genre in itself. And I could be throwing myself completely off and stuff like that. And then again, too, if the script's not up to speed, then I won't
Hmm.
hazard it, But if I do feel like it is something that I can do within a time, yeah, I'll definitely go there. I'll definitely give it a shot.
That's all you can do in the end. But um, Chris, thanks very much for coming on. Great having a chat, and
Thank you for
you know,
having me on the show. And
and obviously keep us up to date whenever Evil Inheritance comes out or anything else. Just you got me emails
yes,
that out.
yes,
We'll check out the
we're
newsletter
hoping to have a
and those
trailer
things.
out pretty soon too. Within a few weeks, we'll have another trailer encompassing everything.
Hmm.
And there's some things that we're working on right now, special effects wise, that we're really kind of proud of that we haven't shown anything, and really, I'm really happy about it, and I'm hoping everybody will be too when we get to film them actually. So they're still being built.
Yep. That'll be on your YouTube channel mainly.
Well,
So you put it on
I'm gonna try
Instagram
to
as
keep
well.
those spoilers under wraps as much as
And then
possible.
your
But yeah,
trailer, the trailer.
yeah, oh, the trailer, yes, the trailer will definitely be on all the social media platforms
Mhm.
once because now that we have 90% of the film shot, we definitely have a lot more footage to show people and just to kind of whet their appetite for more of what we have to offer.
Just keep something up. So obviously, folks, all the links are in the description. So go give Chris some support. And just need to say thanks for everybody for turning up in the chat. And until next time, keep up the other channel, do those type of clicky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.